Okay, welcome to the January 13th, 2026 Town Council meeting. Can we have a roll call, please?
Yes, thank you. Councilmember Zabriskie.
Present.
Councilmember Pallavi.
Yes.
Councilmember Romack.
Here.
Vice Mayor Henderson.
Here.
And Mayor Klostad.
Here.
Thank you.
Okay. Will everybody please rise and join us in the Pledge of Allegiance? Okay, now's the time for public comment on anything that is not on tonight's agenda. I know we have a couple of people here to make some public comment. Please approach the podium. You have 3 minutes. There is a timer over here to count down for you. And please state your name and fill out a comment card in the back so we can correctly spell your name. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you. Hello, Mayor, Council. My name is Greg Zerbel, Truckee resident, volunteer downtown, and I just wanted to come in tonight and mention that this new streetscape, West River Street and Brickletown, have been awesome. I use this like every other day, and it's so much better than walking out in traffic. And when a car comes, you got to jump off the road and then get back in, walk a little more and jump back over. And so these sidewalks really help. And that's all I got to say.
Thank you so much, Mr. Zerbel, for that comment and for all of your great service to the community.
I'm Emily Cashton. For the record, having presented this council a petition with signatures in May 2025 with irrefutable evidence that West Street in the Greenpoint subdivision at Donner Lake was dedicated, accepted, and placed into the county road system, as were neighboring Lakeview and Lakeview Extension subdivisions, until those subdivisions were abandoned in 1960. In 1973, the tax assessor discovered a clerical error, removing West Street from the county list during those 1960 abandonments, which supposedly was corrected. But 33 lost road lists and sloppy record keeping, a tenant for incorporation occurred, as well identified in the 33-page 2025 grand jury report, which this town council declined to publicly review. Mr. Wilkins and Town Attorney Crabb were presented this mistake in October 2000, but despite documents available in 5 minutes since 1973 in the assessor's office, they suppressed this, directing Town Council to declare the road private in 2003. And only with a 2019 petition was the town forced to declare the road public. The town has declined to have this current petition heard, but requested additional documents and evidence to be sent to the town's outside counsel for review. But to date, the town has not responded despite 9 requests for an update since May. We question why Mr. Wilkins failed to enforce encroachment permits during gas and water line installation along Reed, or required Planning Commission drainage mitigation occur when a private development, represented by his wife, graded a road across above Reed, all leading to profound downhill property damage and ongoing documented pollution of Donner Lake. Mr. Wilkins' fixes of Donner Lake Road failed to correct a known drainage problem, leading to the 2017 washout of the only entrance exit of Reed, undermining strategic utilities of gas, water, exposing sewer lines feet from the lake. In allowing the road and drainage to fail due to Mr. Wilkins' neglect in an effort to pressure owners to assume the road problems, on town direction, he has supported 2 property owners' attempts to establish an association to take control of these dangerous problems, including liability, which would release the town of all legal obligations. Yet, the town required no signatures of owner support while taking taxes for this private public road without providing services. Several years ago, approaching California Attorney General Rob Bonta with our complaints, he required we exhaust all available avenues for rectification, advising us to resubmit if a reasonable resolution did not occur. Based on ongoing town obstruction, exhausting all avenues, on Thursday, his office will receive a package of the comprehensive history and documented evidence to support our claims, requesting a review and investigation.
Thank you, Ms. Cashton.
Thank you for this opportunity.
We did receive your public comment in writing, so thank you.
You got it.
Town Council, friends, I'm here as Clarence Oddbody, and I would like to thank the town of Truckee for a wonderful, magical Christmas for the Truckee Donner Senior people. In fact, I want to thank a few organizations and people that really came through. BNI, Denise Cowell, Gratitudes Julie and her dad, Pet Station, Mountain Hardware, Tahoe Forest Church, and the wonderful ladies that bring casseroles. I call them the 5 wise women. I learned how not to cook a ham from Lucas and Jacob and Jim. Noon Rotary, John, thank you for helping with the gift cards. Grocery Outlet, Shannon and Ryan, oh my gosh. Roundhouse, Julie, for the magical bags that she made. And J.D. Haas for socks. Oh my God. I also would like to thank my team, Arnie, KK, Tara and Mike Vaughn, and their daughter Carrie, for keeping me sane, sort of. I really, really feel blessed to live in this town. Thank you.
Thank you, Jesse, and for all that you do for the community and the seniors there. It's greatly appreciated. You do. Are there any other public comments on items not on the agenda? Okay, seeing none. Well, we have, we are not doing the presentation, right? So we just have town manager's report, correct?
That's correct. We've deferred that. So hopefully you'll hear about the Museum of Truckee History at a future meeting. They're doing some really great work.
They are.
I don't have any updates other than to wish everybody a happy new year and welcome back. And we look forward to the year.
Great, thank you. And I guess there's really no, well, we could open public comment on presentations, but I kind of assume there's none. Any council comments or questions? Okay, moving on to consent then. Are we good? All right, we have several consent items. 6.1, minutes of the December 9th, 2025 Joint Council Planning Commission Workshop and the December 9th, 2025 Town Council Special Meeting. 6.2, Elkhorn Ridge Roadways Acceptance. 6.3, clean up portions of the Truckee Municipal Code. 6.4, extension of dishwashing grant application deadline. 6.5, reimagine Bridge Street contract amendment with Acumen Engineering LLC. 6.6, increase purchase authority with Corwin, Buick, GMC, Reno for the Fleet Department. 6.7, notice of completion for paving drainage and, project C2502. Also the 2025 Trail Pavement Maintenance Project C2506 and 2025 Recessed Striping Project C2203. Do any council members wish to poll any of the consent items? Staff, do you wish to poll any consent items?
No, Madam Mayor.
Does any member of the public wish to poll consent items? Seeing none,
I'll make a motion that we approve the consent calendar.
Second.
okay, so we have Councilmember Romack motioning and Vice Mayor Henderson seconding. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. Forgive me while I shuffle over and people crawl under my, almost there, right? Okay, moving on then to our first discussion item. This is Alfred, and you're queued up. This public opinion survey results from Measure V roads tax renewal. Take it away, Alfred.
Good evening, Your Honor, Madam Mayor, and members of Town Council. Alfred Knotts, Assistant Public Works Director. Happy New Year, belated. And let me see if I can get this all up and running. Kelly, where'd she go? Oh, it's right here. All right, jumping back in. We are here to discuss agenda item 7.1, which is discuss the Measure V roads tax renewal. We have some survey results. This was commissioned. The contract authorization was back in September. We worked through some details on getting the timing and the questions all queued up. And we do have Charles Heath on here from Team Civics that has helped us, and Timothy also from True North, who's also done a lot of polling within our area. So I will kind of cut to the chase here, but I will give a little background on Measure V. Measure V was originally passed in 1998 as Measure A. At that point, it was a road sales tax. It was authorized through 2000. It wasn't a 10-year horizon. And digging through some of the files, it was a 10-year sunset. It did sunset in 2010, not 2008. That was renewed again as Measure V. That was renewed under a 20-year authority, so up until 2028. We are coming up on that sunset, and we wanted to, we did put this in our work program to do polling and do some survey results. Wanted to get that data and information to council sooner than later so we can make some determinations over the next few election cycles. So with that, the recommendation today is to receive a presentation on the renewal public opinion survey that was just completed. Potentially direct staff to notify, depending on what the findings are today and the will of the council, to submit a letter of intent or notice of intent to the council. There are some deadlines coming up. I think we're kind of familiar with some of these milestones that we need to statutorily hit before we can go to a ballot measure also. So that's what we're here to discuss a little bit tonight to make sure that we hit those. And then we would have to get all of that data, not data, but actually all of the ordinances and resolutions to Nevada County before March 3rd, the early part of March. So that's what's kind of the critical path here. So at this point, I will hand this over to Charles and Timothy to walk us through the survey results, assuming they can hear us and are queued up.
So I can hear you, Alfred. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, wonderful. Well, thanks for the handoff, and good evening, Mayor and members of council. Tim McClarney with President of True North Research. I'm going to try and go through this slide pretty briskly, but at the end, if council has questions, be happy to answer them. Next slide, please. So before we talk about the results, we'll take a quick moment to review the methodology of the study, or how we conduct the study. We use the same basic methodology here that we always use with revenue measure surveys, including those that we've done in the town in the past. We identified a group of voters that are what we call likely November voters. These are individuals that we would expect to cast ballots in the upcoming November election. Nested within that group is also a group of likely June voters. So we have the ability to look at both of those election environments. Once we had selected that random sample, made sure it was representative on all the key dimensions that tend to drive how people vote on these types of measures. We reached out using email, text, and telephone. Folks had the option to take the survey either online or by telephone, whichever was their preference. We wound up completing 455 interviews, which with a random sample allows us to have results that are within a margin of error of 4.5% at the 95% confidence level. What that means is we can be 95% confident that the results we'll talk about tonight are within 4.5% of what we would have found had we spoken with all of your likely voters. Next slide, please. So we like to begin our revenue measure surveys with what we call the importance of issues question, where for each of the issues on the slide here, we just ask them to tell us how important is it to them on this scale of extremely important, very important, somewhat important, or not at all important. Great warm-up question, gets folks into the groove of taking the survey. It's also an opportunity, though, to understand how items that are related to your proposed measure, how these items stack up against other issues that also compete for tax dollars. And in particular, how do items like maintaining local streets and roads, which is really a centerpiece of the Measure V measure, how that item stacks up against the issue of preventing local tax increases. Rough rule of thumb, surprisingly predictive. The higher up in this list that this issue of maintaining local streets and roads stacks relative to the other issues, and in particular that issue of preventing local tax increases, the better positioned you are to move forward with some type of revenue measure related to streets and roads. Obviously, as you can see here on the slide, maintaining local streets and roads was the #1 issue at 86%. Preventing local tax increases checked in at 57%. So there's almost a 30-point gap there. That's good. Next slide, please. So after that warm-up question, we get right down to business with what we call the initial ballot test. And the idea here is before we get any deeper into this discussion with respondents talking in more detail about how the funds could be spent or presenting arguments pro and con, we want to present to them a mock-up of what we think that 75-word ballot statement could look like if placed on the ballot and get their reaction. The initial ballot test is a really good gauge of where voters are at on the natural with respect to this proposal. So shown here is the ballot language that we tested, and on the next slide, you'll see the results. So at that initial ballot test, we had 72% of respondents say that they would support this proposal. We had 22% opposed, and we had about 6% who were unsure or prefer not to answer the question. So in the state of California, for a dedicated sales tax like this for transportation, you need 2/3. So at that initial ballot test, we're sitting about 5 points north of the 2/3 threshold that's required for passage. Next slide, please. So at this point in the poll, we get to what we call the projects and services section of the interview. And what we're doing here is really twofold. One is we're now going to start to educate this respondent more about what this Measure V renewal could accomplish. Up until this point, they'd only seen that 75-word ballot statement, pretty constrained in what you can say in 75 words. Here, we get to unpack Measure V into all these potential uses, and then that way they're getting a better idea about what the measure's about. It's also an opportunity for us to understand of all the ways you could spend Measure V funds, how do voters feel about each of those ways, and which of these are sort of their priorities. One of the things that jumps off the slide here is that everything we tested here as potential use of Measure V funds was popular. You had at least 75% of voters say that they would favor spending some of the money on that item. But when you go to the top, there's sort of three that you can see really outrank the others. Basic fixing potholes, repairing, maintaining, and improving local streets and roads, and also removing snow from local roads during winter months. But again, everything we tested here was popular. Next slide, please. So if you as a council were to choose to place a measure on a ballot in 2026, there's going to be an election cycle. There's going to be a lot of discussion and debate in the community about this renewal. You'll undoubtedly have some folks who will step up and advocate on behalf of this measure, go out and talk to their friends and neighbors about why it's needed and why they should vote yes. You might also get some opponents, right? Step up, say things to try and convince voters that they shouldn't be doing this. We should be voting no. For this survey to be a reliable gauge of the feasibility of a Measure V renewal, we need to simulate that discussion and debate in the space of the poll, so we have a good understanding not only where your voters are at on the natural with respect to this proposal, which was that initial ballot test, but what happens after they hear both positive and negative arguments. So shown here are the positive arguments we tested. You can see a lot of these get traction with at least 60% of voters or more. At the top of the list, though, the fact that every penny raised by Measure V stays local in Truckee, right, to maintain roadways and infrastructure. It can't be taken away by the state or used for other purposes. That was a top-selling argument, followed by the fact that as a renewal, Measure V is not going to raise their tax rates, right? It simply extends the existing sales tax approved by voters in 2008 to continue funding for roadway improvements and maintenance projects. So this is an extension of the existing measure. It is not going to increase the tax rate. So at this point in the poll, voters have heard more about this measure than they did initially. We had a chance to talk in more detail about the types of projects and services that could be funded. We presented positive arguments. We've yet to get the negatives. So on the next slide, we go to what we call the interim ballot test, where we present that same 75-word ballot statement. And we say, now that you've heard a bit more, where do you stand? You can see that we tick up here to 74%. So at the interim ballot test, before we hit negatives, we're sitting about 7 points north of that 2/3 threshold that's required for passage. And then next slide, we get to the negatives. The idea behind the negatives is I want to pressure test voter support for this proposal by peppering them with a series of negative arguments, right? The kind of negative arguments you might hear from a critic or an opponent of a Measure V renewal. The point here is we want to understand how resilient your yes vote is should you get active vocal opposition that makes these kinds of points. You can see that some of these arguments get traction, right? Top one being that, you know, this isn't going to solve your traffic congestion problem, right? That this measure has been in place for 25 years and traffic congestion continues to get worse. That could be an argument against a Measure V renewal for some folks. And you can see again that some of these negatives get traction. The real question though is what happens afterwards, and that's on the next slide. So on the next slide, we go back to that final ballot test, right? We present that same 75-word statement after they've heard the negatives and ask them where they stand. You can see the negatives cool us down, but even after opposition arguments, we're still landing at the 2/3 threshold that's required for passage, with 24% opposed and about 9% unsure. Next slide, please. So what does all this mean? So I'm going to sort of circle back to that overarching question I mentioned at the outset as, you know, a motivator for doing this research, which is, you know, understanding if it's feasible to move forward with a Measure V renewal, and if it is feasible, how you might go about structuring this measure in a way that's consistent with the type of measure your community is interested in supporting. So with respect to feasibility, it's pretty clear that yes, a Measure V renewal is feasible for the reasons that we see here under the positive signs. We saw that maintaining local streets and roads was the most important issue to your voters in the current environment, and that was considered to be considerably more important than some of the other issues that also compete for tax dollars, as well as that issue of preventing local tax increases. That translated into strong natural support for a Measure V renewal at the current 0.5% rate, meaning no increase, just continuing the current rate out into the future of 72%. We had popular projects and improvements, and we had positive arguments that resonate. So when we see those pieces in place, those are the kind of things that we want to see for a measure to have a reasonable chance of success if you move forward in placing it on a 2026 ballot. At the same time, there are a few challenges that we need to keep in mind. We did see some receptiveness to potential opposition arguments, right? So we need to keep that in mind. We don't know what the future holds in terms of the trajectory of the economy or tariffs and inflation and as well as other measures. In some ways, we're already living in this environment, right? We already have tariffs. We already have the inflationary impacts of those. We already know what the impact of that has been on sort of uncertainty around the economy. But what we don't know is what the next, say, 9 or 10 months is going to hold. There's also, if you go in June, there's a little bit, you know, it's easier to predict what happens in November in terms of turnout. It's a little bit of a challenge to know what the turnout's going to be in June. The turnouts of primaries tend to be a little more volatile and open to swings, and so we want to keep that in mind. And those are really things that I don't think are, you know, challenges that your measure can't withstand, right? But you always want to sort of plan for some headwinds, right? You always want to sort of say that if some of these factors sort of go against the grain here, we need to make sure that we're putting the effort in on our side to be able to withstand those headwinds. And then finally, from a challenge is just the 2/3 bar that is required for passage. I mean, you're familiar with that from your past Measure V renewals, but it's always difficult to hit that 2/3 threshold. And so, again, you need to be able to be making smart decisions about the measure you're putting in front of voters and putting the work in terms of communications. Next slide, please. So that I will hand off to Charles.
Okay, thank you, Tim. Charles Heath, partnered with Team Civics. We are the town's strategy and communications consultants on numerous these recent revenue measure elections. So want to talk a little bit about what the next steps would look like if we move forward with this measure on the June ballot. I'll piggyback on Tim's conclusions to say that I think there's an opportunity to pass this measure in June, and I think there's some specific advantages associated with doing this in the June election ballot. One, these are pretty strong levels of support that we're seeing in this polling, consistently above the 2/3 passage threshold. There at the end of the survey, when we see us getting close to the 2/3 passage threshold, I think that's after the poll has represented an opposition campaign that is stronger than what we've typically seen in Truckee. So I think it's a very conservative measure of the support that we might see. Also, when we dig a level deeper in the polling, we see that support is actually a couple percentage points higher among the lower turnout projected voter turnout in June compared to November. That's not an uncommon finding, something we've seen in the past in Truckee, where those voters that vote consistently in all elections, not sort of picking and choosing between different elections, tend to be a little bit more in the know, maybe aware of what the roads tax has delivered historically in Truckee, and thus are a little more supportive. We also aren't aware of other competing tax measures intended for the June ballot, so there's an opportunity there to avoid competition. And lastly, we live in fairly uncertain times here. There's certainly some reason for concern that over the long term, we may face some economic challenges, maybe even a potential recession in the future. None of us have a crystal ball. We don't know exactly what that will look like, but our near-term projections are more accurate than our long-term projections, and allowing more time to pass just introduces more uncertainty and potential risk. So I think we have a good opportunity to do this in June, given that it is just an extension of an existing tax. We've completed our feasibility assessment here. Next steps would be to work quickly to develop and implement an informational communication program to make sure voters understand what the road tax has done for the town, the fact that revenue source is set to expire, and explain the proposal to renew that measure. We would also be working with the town attorney's office to develop the resolution and ordinance that would come back to the council to place the measure on the ballot. The statutory deadline to qualify for the June ballot is March 6th. So I believe we would be looking at your February 10th and 24th meetings to bring that documentation back to the council for approval. We do need to notify Nevada County if we're intending to hold a June election. So with your direction, we'll alert them to that and begin that planning process. So with that, happy to answer any questions you all have.
Alfred, do you have anything more to add?
I do not. Well, actually, I do. There's a few things highlighted on there for council to consider also that we touched on. And just in case you guys did want to see the ballot language in front of you, that's here as well. But these don't need to be decided today. Again, this is, to get direction about do we want to proceed. Charles mentioned the letter to the county that is due by January 28th. If we want to notify them, that's a heads up to them. So, but again, these are some things to consider. We did the same considerations when we were looking at Measure U, Measure R renewal for Measure U. Do we want to look at what cycle that is? And again, we already talked about that. The tax rate, as well as looking at sunset clauses in there or renewed by voters. So just some other things to consider.
I do want to say thank you very much for including a list of past projects funded by this. It's quite extensive and very impactful in our community. So thank you for doing that.
Absolutely. That was Becky's suggestion. So yes, that was a nice value added.
Mayor and council members, sorry for the interruption. I know your screens are not working. Our splitter has died, so they're not going to pop up during the meeting. We'll have to replace that. We have emailed you the presentation, so if you have your device, you can pull them up on email and see them without having to awkwardly turn your necks.
That is helpful. Thank you so much. Okay, with that, let's go to council questions. Does anybody have some burning ones to start? Councilmember Zabriskie.
Charles, there was a 5% decline in voter support after both the pros and con arguments were presented. I couldn't find any one thing that might explain the decline. Is there anything you can point to?
No, it's really a combination of the negatives, right? We're sort of simulating a very vocal, active opposition. And as Charles pointed out, that's kind of unusual in Truckee, right? I mean, we're probably testing in the space of a poll more opposition than you actually see on the ground in Truckee when we've looked at these measures in the past. And so that's why you're seeing it's really a cumulative of the 5 negative arguments and simulating this sort of louder, organized opposition.
Okay. And then my other question is, in the opposition arguments twice, there was the phrase at the end, we can't afford to keep raising taxes. But you told us this is simply an extension of an
Correct.
existing
So-
tax. Go ahead.
Yeah, correct. Now, remember, in the negative arguments, we're simulating how opponents might talk about a Measure V. And I can tell you just from the experience of working on other tax extensions that the opposition isn't going to concede that this isn't a tax increase. They're going to say something like, well, if you let it expire, it would go down, right? So therefore, it's an increase. So they're going to use pointed language that is meant to have maximum effect. And so we're trying to be true to that in the poll, even though you're right. This isn't going to increase the tax rate. It's just going to extend it out into the future.
Okay, thank you. Those are all my questions.
Vice Mayor?
Thank you. I feel like I have to turn, but it is kind of awkward for everyone in here. So, given that we're talking about putting it on for the special, the primary, but we don't know the voter universe as well, what can you just tell me a little bit more of the pros and cons of, primary versus November 26 when we do know the voter universe a bit more?
Well, I mean, there's certainly an element of additional volatility in the primaries just because, typically in the general, you're maximizing voter turnout. So anyone that has a history of voting is typically participating. It can be a little bit trickier to project voter turnout in the primary. But with that said, I mean, we have primary elections in Truckee every 2 years. And so we have lots of historical data to help guide our assumptions about what that turnout's likely to look like. In some communities, you'll see a significant difference in support between the lower turnout primary and the higher turnout general, because the general brings a lot of, younger, typically more progressive voters to the polls. That really isn't the reality that we see in Truckee. The demographic profile of primary election voters looks a whole lot like the demographic profile of general election voters. And as I mentioned, when we, dig a little deeper into these poll results and isolate likely June voters versus likely November voters, the June voters are actually a little bit higher. So whereas in some communities, we kind of have to argue for, let's wait for the higher voter turnout election. I'm not seeing trends here that suggest that that's necessarily to our advantage. So again, there's some value to striking while the iron's hot. We have the support now and, have more confidence that in the near term that, the environment will remain fairly stable.
Great, thank you. And then my next question is just, it looks like the polling shows different demographics responded differently to the measure, especially by some of the age groups. It looks like in that final ballot test, those aged 50 to 64 and 64 plus showed pretty low support compared to some of their younger counterparts. So I guess the question is just, we're going to need sort of a very specific strategy for engaging some of these demographics based upon what the polling has shown within their demographics, yes?
Tim, do you want to speak to the demographic
Oh, yeah.
differences?
Well, the what you just described is the case, and it's actually pretty common that, when you look at tax measures, oftentimes, your younger voters are going to be more supportive of it. Your older voters tend to be a bit less supportive of it. Partisanship plays a big role, obviously, in how people view these measures. And so it's something that, we would want to consider moving forward is understanding, okay, who are your supporters, who are your, who's opposed to this, and who's sort of open to, messaging and it's not just a get out the vote effort, but they also swing your way, right? Once they learn more about the proposal.
Thank you.
Yeah, and again, if you're looking at that final ballot test, that's after opposition, and again, I believe that over represents the level of opposition we have tended to see in Truckee, and so earlier in the poll, I think that some of the demographic differences in support are a little more modest.
Thank you.
Okay, on this side? No questions? Okay, and I don't have any additional questions for staff. I'll open it up to public comment. If anybody has any public comment on this agenda item, please approach the podium. Seeing none? Nobody? All right, we'll move on to deliberation. Jan, you want to start us off? Councilmember Zabriskie?
I'm in accord with staff's recommendation.
Okay, I'll just say I think this, it's a really big decision. Anytime we have tax measures, they're really, really big decisions. They impact people in really big ways. I think I'm encouraged to see the polling showing that 72% initial support, especially with polling conducted mid-December, right? Like that time frame when people have a lot of holiday expenses. I would sort of hypothesize we could have seen support dwindle a little bit just because of sort of that context. And given that the tax expires in 28, I do think I'm in support of staff's recommendation as well. And moving on the June 26th primary ballot, it gives us more certainty. It avoids competing with other measures and priorities in the future. And the recent polling was pretty astounding, showing roads as our constituents' #1 priority by a really, really large percentage. I think that everything I've heard tonight leads me to believe that waiting does risk more economic uncertainty, competing ballot measures, and just political climate shifts that could end up eroding support. And those who know me know that I'm pretty critical of tax measures. There have been several that I have not been in favor of. I think this one is really, really important for maintaining our roads. It's a core town service. It's why our town incorporated, to maintain the roads here in Truckee. So I'm in favor of moving forward.
Thank you, Vice Mayor Henderson. Councilmember Romack?
Yeah, thank you. Very well said, Vice Mayor. And I will just add, I know we have a high standard for our road system and our snow plowing, and it's a credit to our public works team, and it's a credit to the community for stepping up and paying this tax measure along with all of our visitors who pay into it too. So I'm supportive of moving forward. It's great to see that the community is supportive. So happy to go with staff's recommendation.
Thank you. And Councilmember Pallavi?
Yeah, just to add to that, I agree with everything that's been said and would only offer that as we approach budget season in the not too distant future, and we continue to look at all of our capital improvement projects as well, and really look at the future price tags and look at what this tax has accomplished in the past. I believe it's an important mechanism that this community has been able to use for many years, and needs to be continued because we have a lot of really exciting stuff coming down, and I look forward to getting some of those projects and funded. That's all.
Thank you.
It's good timing with all the potholes, too.
Those are Caltrans' fault, not the town's.
Thank you for the correction.
Yeah, I'm in agreement with my fellow council members. I think this is well articulated why this is such an important thing for our community. I think the one thing that I would add is that, we all pay a lot of different taxes, particularly property taxes. This is one area that our visitors share in the responsibility of the impact as well as the cost, and I really like that distribution of support. So I think, and I also agree with the June ballot. I think that is the right timing for us. So do you need an actual vote or a recommendation? What do you need from us?
That would be great if we can have that for the minutes.
Okay, if I could have so we have to go over there for the recommendation. If I can have a motion.
Sure. I'll make a motion that we direct staff to notify the county to place Measure V renewal on the June ballot and direct staff to return before the end of February with formal action. It's the only part that's missing from the PowerPoints is the last slide that you sent us, so we still have to move around. That's okay. That's why we still have to turn around. So motion recommended.
I'll second.
Great. All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Okay. Thank you, everybody. Okay, we'll move on to item 7.2. If I can find it. There, downtown pedestrian bicycle railroad crossing feasibility study. So we have Alfred presenting this one as well, and we have Marianne Rule and Lynn Marie Watley on Zoom. Are they queued up? Kind of a quick transition. Thank you. We forgot to say thank you to Timothy and Charles.
Looks
Are we
like
all
our
ready?
Zoom participants are here, and Alfred's just getting the presentation up and going. So 1 second.
Great. And we want to do a sound check with our Zoom participants. Can you hear us and can you test your mics?
I can hear you fine.
Great, we can hear you too.
I can hear you fine as well.
Excellent, thank you both.
Good evening, Alfred Knotts, Assistant Public Works Director again. I'm here to discuss the Downtown Railroad Pedestrian Crossing Feasibility Study. Feasibility seems to be a theme here tonight, so just wanted to highlight that. What we are looking at today is to accept a report that was provided in Attachment A of the staff report. This is a study we embarked on several months ago that was funded by a Caltrans grant. Again, it identifies a feasibility study. It's not masquerading as anything else. It is determined what is politically, financially, and even technically feasible in terms of a mid-block crossing downtown, and we'll highlight some of the areas where that is analyzed. And we are also looking to defer any other additional action after we accept the report. So that would be the staff recommendation. We'll get to that later. Feasibility study overview and purpose. So the study identified, and this is consistent with the grant and the grant award from Caltrans, but to evaluate alternatives for a new railroad crossing that enhances accessibility, connectivity for pedestrians and bicyclists in historic downtown Truckee. So this is looking at an additional mid-block crossing, essentially from Bridge Street to the east and MacGyver crossing to the west. And I do have some figures here to kind of highlight that a little bit better. Goals associated with that are protect the environment and promote equity amongst modes. So again, we allocate a considerable amount of money to roads, streets, trails, and so on, sidewalks, as we heard again tonight from Mr. Zerbel as well. So I'm looking to how do we spread that equity across additional modes in terms of transit even too. So I'm focused on bicycle and pedestrian here tonight. Connect downtown recreational lands, including parks, the Truckee River, as well as the Truckee River Legacy Trail. So looking at new improvements downtown, such as the park, as well as some other improvements that were highlighted tonight along West River. Relationship to town plans, goals, and policies. So this was initially identified in the 1997 downtown area plan. Also identified in the Truckee Trails and Bikeways Master Plan, which is our approved trails plan. Relationship to other projects in the area. Again, looking at kind of what's all been invested in, both been completed as well as what is planned. We look at Reimagine Bridge Street, Jaboom Streetscape. I mentioned the West River projects, Brickletown, Historic District improvements, Legacy Trail, and again, the West River Streetscape project that was recently complete towards the east and towards Bridge Street. To give a relationship with this, the weighted red line is essentially kind of the study area that I just highlighted, which is Bridge Street to the east and MacGyver Crossing to the west. But again, showing the relationship, and when projects you see, and I'm sorry you can't see it that well because it is a snip of a snip in terms of a screenshot, but when you see the years identified, that means a project is completed. Other projects that don't have the years associated with them or next to them are still projects that are under development. But again, to give a broader context of how this all ties together in terms of improvements down in this area. And looking at what we're trying to accomplish, or what the feasibility is looking at, is, without this type of improvement, what is the existing condition? So what bicyclists and pedestrians experience right now, if they want to get to West River, which we just did a significant amount of investment on, and there's commercial activity over there, and vice versa, it requires a walk and a bicycle ride in terms of this distance and this time for an average kind of pedestrian and bicyclist. Again, recognizing that not everybody lives at 6,000 feet where we live at and things like that. So this is kind of taking the average walking distance and biking distance and as well as travel times. We did look at, in doing so, we looked at identifying preliminary locations between those two study limits of Bridge Street and MacGyver. We identified through a group process, and I'll talk about that in a minute as well, 6 potential locations, and those were identified looking at connectivity, safety, attractiveness, connectivity, all of those things as well. And we did focus down on the 3 you will see to the left, which are option A, B, and C. Option D, E, and F started to lose their utility as you get a little further to the existing crossing. What is the cost benefit? Are people going to use this? Are they going to gravitate to what they know, which has been in place for some time down at Bridge Street and things like that. So also there were, as you moved further to the east as well, there were more and additional physical conflicts as well. So those were highlighted by the group. And again, I'll speak to the process here in a little bit. So it was focused in on option A, B, and C as far as location. So once the locations were identified, then we started looking at these structure types, and I'll highlight those in a second. So structure types, again, looking at the feasibility, the grant, and the objectives of the project or the study itself, is to look at how does that get accomplished for this, railroad facility that we love, and it represents our town, but does bifurcate our commercial districts downtown. So to potentially overcome that physical barrier, we looked at an overpass, an underpass, and the scope of work also did look at an at-grade crossing as well. And I'll speak to that a little bit more in a second. So the at-grade crossing was identified to be essentially regulatorily infeasible, both by Union Pacific Railroad as well as the California Public Utilities Commission. And I'm sure most people, or a lot of people, at least in the staff level and even on our council here, are familiar with environmental processes. But the sooner you can look at alternatives and solutions or potential solutions and then consider them and reject them, but have it documented in a document or a planning study or a feasibility study, they don't have to be relived when you get in the environmental document. So that can kind of inform the planning process and inform future environmental or even design processes for any project, not necessarily even just this project. So that was eliminated for further consideration. It also didn't meet a lot of the goals and objectives in terms of safety and connectivity and those types of things. So in looking at the overpass consideration, our transit system teams, who is all on the call today, who's done a considerable amount of work in this area, as well as with UP directly, really understands kind of their design criteria. So in looking at that, an overpass structure to be considered feasible would have to clear the railroad right-of-way, mostly where the track right-of-way, as we all know, or familiar with UP's right-of-way, does extend out in various areas. So do want to specify that that's more associated with the tracks themselves. Must provide 23 and 4 inches of clearance over the tracks. Now that sounds very specific, because it is. So that's looking at double stacked freight liners that come through the area. So to be able to continue that freight traffic. Structure must be at the highest point, 35 feet. Again, that's also taking into consideration the bottom level of the pedestrian or bicycle decking, and then looking at as well as any type of structure or coverage that would have to be over it as well. Cannot interfere with railroad sight lines and visibility, so you've probably recognized the new gantries downtown, the lights and the signal system. That's what that's referring to. Requires ramps, steps, or elevator access on each side, so it would require some other type of access improvement in addition to the steps themselves. Underpass must be outside the fenced railroad right-of-way. So anytime the rail or the tunnel itself daylights to ground level, it would have to be outside of the existing fence structure. Approximately a 15 to 10 foot size opening. That's for both vertical and horizontal clearances, so width and height. Typically needs about 8 feet of structure depth to support the track. One thing to consider here for anything to go under or to work in this area, UP needs to maintain the operation of the railroad essentially at all times. So that 8-foot depth structure would have to be worked under the railroad, but that's also to make sure that there's enough load bearing. Involves excavation on the tracks, extensive coordination with the railroad, just kind of spoke to that, but again, also requires ramp, steps, or an elevator on each side to provide access. I mentioned input and how we arrived at some of these discussions and everything. So we did form a technical advisory committee, and I know the slides will jump around because I did take a 30-slide presentation and try to condense it down to a manageable size here. But we did develop a technical advisory committee, and that did consist mostly of internal folks. Reason being is we wanted to make sure it was feasible in terms of, our historic downtown, planning, zoning, other design criteria, but also get input from our PD folks, our emergency management, our maintenance folks, and so on. And then also we had a community review committee, which there's an extensive write-up in the staff report about that makeup, which consists of about 30 community members. In doing so, we had a meeting series. We had about 3 meetings. Well, we had 3 meetings, a series of them. In terms of the TAC and the CRC. So the TAC would meet first, inform kind of the information that they would get, give us feedback both on the presentation and the content, and that would be structured in a form to give the presentations to the Community Review Committee. Meeting series number 1 focused on study objectives and process. So that was focused on the grant, where we are, again, feasibility. This is essentially even pre-planning work. Meeting series 2, we focused on additional design concepts and evaluation criteria, both for locations as well as structure types, and then how to screen those. And then we took the committee out into the field as well. So about 18 members joined us out into the field, and we looked at each side of the tracks, both north and south side of the tracks. What you'll see in that picture, if you can see it, is there's some cones out there. So we did lay out cones actually to where the footprint would be, where the ramps, how long those would even extend, because the ramps were rather significant also to meet ADA. So we gave everybody an idea about what this would look like on the ground. And then we gave that evaluation criteria matrix to the folks, and then they came back and submitted their feedback on what the structure type location was, and those types of things. Meeting series number 3 is when we actually looked down at the comparison of the alternatives. So looked at overhead, undercrossing, also all the locations, and how those ranked out, and what the will of the committee was. So the summary of the committee input, I have highlighted and bolded a few things just for them to kind of pop out here, but at-grade alternative, again, was not carried forward. Overhead crossing with an elevator option scored the best for overall structure type. And again, I've been very deliberate on how I've selected language here. There's no reference to a preferred alternative or anything like that because we're not in that part of the process. So I just want to highlight that, options or scoring higher, those are the types of things that we got from the committee. Again, the elevator option scored the best when looking at the ramps and that type of footprint. Also, as maintenance issues with ramps and things like that. Location A scored the highest. That's the one that was the furthest to the west. So just on the other side of where Jack and M are and where the Rocket Fizz went in just recently. So that area just a little bit further to that landscaping area that's just past that parking lot to the east there. Location B was assessed similar. Again, it had more adverse impacts than location A because it was in that parking lot. So location A was moved a little bit further to the west where it could be accommodated. High construction cost was an overall issue. I'm sure the council has seen a lot of the public comment come in as well. So that again was reiterated. I think that we saw a lot today. Overhead options were identified as functional, but a lot of concern over the visual character downtown and aesthetics. And ramps were noted to be long walking distances and significantly increase the footprint of the structure, which I already highlighted. So when we did look at this and identify, overhead crossings, where we did, thanks to our trans system team, who's our consulting team, who are very efficient and very productive, we had budget left in the overall budget for the project, as well as some flexibility in the schedule. And so we did take a look at what do these overhead crossings look like? Where do we have examples and what do they physically look like? This wasn't originally in the scope, so we did take some additional dollars and allocate those to the renderings that you saw in the staff report and the feasibility study. That wasn't initially scoped, but we went above and beyond because we wanted to answer these questions. And this is iterative process to make an informed decision at the end of the day. So we did look at some of these. Obviously, they're not all, similar context in terms of community, but they do give an idea in terms of structure type that would be required to cross a similar type of facility within other communities. So when we did do that, we took the actual design criteria and design standards that would be required, both height, footprint, all of that, clearance for the railroad freight to move through, and put that into CAD and came up with these renderings here and looked at different feedback. Well, we did get feedback from folks too. So originally this enclosure that you see, I don't know if you can actually, if I can use the mouse here, but that was all encased and not in glass. So that was feedback we got from folks, both from our TAC, from PD, say, hey, we'd like to be able to see in this. Also people from the Community Review Committee said this is an opportunity to kind of, provided other vantage points from this perspective, but also just to kind of break up the mass as well. So that was some of the feedback we got back from that group, as well as some of the material type selections in terms of matching and trying to fit it in with some of the design criteria and standards downtown. We have a bunch of those renderings, so if people do want to see more of those, they are in the feasibility report, and they're also in the staff report as well. But we also wanted to take an idea or take a crack at, what is this going to cost potentially? Obviously, that is an idea, or not an idea, but it's a consideration with overall feasibility. So we did look at the overhead crossing with elevators and stairs. That came in to be the range of between about 11 million and 19 million. Undercrossing with elevator and stairs, a range between 22 and 26 million. Overhead crossing with ramps and stairs, so that's about 14 to 21 million in the range. Underpass crossing with ramps and stairs, 24 to 28. So you'll see a range here of between about 10 million or just over 10 million to just under about $30 million. Again, the team that we have hired, the transit system teams, have done a lot of this work recently. They do a lot of work down the whole Capitol corridor. It did have recent engineering and construction costs that they did apply to get these numbers. So that was about as good as we could get within this part of the feasibility study. So tonight we have a recommendation. The grant does require deliverables to be submitted to Caltrans by April 30th. So we are ahead of schedule here. We're under budget, under schedule, or on schedule. So that's a good thing. But we did want to get back in front of council. And also the last meeting we had with the group was before the holidays. So we didn't want to take any additional time here while we still had the momentum and interest of the group. But present this to you for an acceptance. This is not an adoption, so this is not a regulatory type of a plan. It's just to accept the report and defer any additional project development activities until we complete an update to the 2015 Truckee Trails and Bikeways Master Plan, which is identified in our current work program. I believe it is C2320, and that is the active transportation plan, which would look at all of that. And those are some of the concerns and some of the feedback we did get from the CRC, the community, and even from the public is, how does this fit into the overall network? Are there other priorities? Since the adoption of the Trails and Master Plan in 2015, we have no doubt that there's other improvements out there. So we'd like to be able to take a look at that, inclusive of this type of improvement as well, but look at the system holistically before we take any, if there ever is any advancement of this study. And that's all I have. Sorry.
That's all you have.
Thank you,
Okay.
Mayor.
We don't have anything from our Zoom participants.
We do not. They're here
Okay.
for in a technical capacity since they've done a lot of this work, and they also have a lot of experience with the regulatory side of things too. So unless there's any questions, they're just here to provide support.
Great. Well, Marion and Lynn, thank you for being here with us. Do we have any questions on this side?
I would just say no questions. I had the pleasure of serving on the community review committee. It was another great committee, so I feel like a lot of stuff was discussed there.
Thank you. Okay. And question from Councilmember Zabriskie?
I have one question, but it has a long prologue. First of all, I think the state's money was well spent, Alfred, and following the progression of the contributions from the committee members was a really enjoyable experience because I thought they made great contributions. I saw the progress and how you went forward in terms of recommending a particular site, essentially the lower cost site and the location. Staff report I thought was excellent along with the feasibility study. Okay, given all that, my question is a narrow one having to do with a trolley, because a trolley was brought up several times. It was my understanding the trolley was not included in the scope of the project, but then the staff report refers to a trolley being saying it could be accomplished with TART Connect. Now I'm intrigued by a trolley because whether this thing ever gets built or not, if it were to be built, it's still a long time away. It offers an opportunity to try out a trolley as a pilot, and I don't see. So my question is, I don't see how TART Connect would actually accomplish what a trolley would. Because my understanding of trolley is it would simply circumnavigate West River, MacGyver Crossing, Donner Pass Road, and just have this fixed route that continues to circle those streets.
Correct. So the comment within the staff report was if the trip wanted to be made right now via transit, it could be made via transit. It doesn't necessarily fit the the operating model as a circulator, like a downtown circulator or a trolley. That is identified within our short-range transit plan as a potential solution downtown, as well as in the parking management plan. So that does not preclude any of that, but I was just trying to highlight that if folks did not want to, if they felt, that there was a barrier that exists right now, that there is a transit alternative right now. Does it operate in that sense of a downtown circulator, hop on, hop off? No, it does not. So, yes.
Thank you.
Yes,
Yeah,
absolutely.
Got it. Great.
Vice Mayor?
Thank you. Do we have a sense of the approximate timeline and budget for updating the 2015 Trails and Bikeways Master Plan?
Yes. So that would be one of the pros of if we did just accept this and did deferred other activities. This would free up both staff and, well, we do have the allocation of dollars to it already, but it would free up workload. And the workload that would be associated that's been allocated or focused on this would now transfer to that. So I do have a draft RFP already written, so we would plan to get that RFP out within the next month or two. And start that process. The driver for that, and speaking with Becky just the other day about it, we want to hit the field season. If we do go this direction, we want to be able to collect data, both by users, counts, being out in the field. So whatever consultant does have that field season, and we don't start in the fall and then they are just collecting or just pulling data. But this way we can get them started sooner. So that would be the timeline.
So ideally, it's sort of like I'm not holding you to anything specifically, but like a Q2 of this year or something, or moving into sort of summer, because we want data, the consultants, whoever responds to the RFP and is awarded, to be able to gather data like on the ground in our community to update our 2015 plan, since it's more than a decade old at this point.
Correct.
Right? Okay.
Correct.
Great. Okay, thank you. The other thing I'll say, it's not exactly a question, but I'll just say thank you to everyone who submitted public comment on this. I know there were a lot. We read all of them, and I know you'll have an opportunity to talk tonight, but I just wanted to thank you in advance for being here as well.
Okay, and I ditto that, and my question was exactly the same. What is our timeline for that update? And that's a great additional piece of information about the transition of projects, potentially. Okay. All right, at this point, we will open it up to public comment. If you have a comment on this item, please approach the podium. You do have 3 minutes. Please state your name, and we would love for you to fill out a comment card so that we can make sure to get your name represented accurately in the notes.
Hi, my name is Steve Jolly, and I served on the Community Review Committee, although I wasn't able to be as involved as I would have liked to have been because of the way my travel schedule worked. But I would like to just take this opportunity to thank Alfred and any staff he had. I get the feeling he probably did a lot of it. But thank you. I thought it was very well put together. I enjoyed the involvement and the community getting together to work through issues and possible solutions. As far as moving forward, I think it's critical to have the 2015 master plan in place. We don't want to build something that is nice, but perhaps not necessary. That might be solved in another manner. The other thing is I have to declare my ignorance on the topic, but Reimagine Bridge Street, I would think would also have to come into play because I would imagine that the overcross, part of the problem is the safety issues of just walking across Bridge Street with the tracks and the traffic, et cetera. We all know it. Because if that Reimagine Bridge Street could provide other solutions as well, rather than, just jumping right to building the overpass. And there is a lot of pushback in the community. Everybody's worried about changing sight lines, of Old Town. Old Town is what drives a lot of people here. And so we have to be sensitive, not to enhance it and not take away from the sight lines. So thank you.
Thank you, Steve. Do we have others? Thank you all. Yes, it's effective to have you Cue up a little bit for us. Thank you so much.
Good evening, Town Council. Alexis Aller, Executive Director of Mountain Area Preservation. Thank you so much for having this hearing tonight and taking our public comments. I served on the 2015 Truckee Trails Bikeway and Master Plan Committee. It was a 2-year process, and I really, the work that group did was really amazing, and we're seeing it play out through a number of our improvements, through trails, through connectivity. I love that Alfred and staff recommended to defer this because the more important work right now is to go back and update that Trails and Bikeway Master Plan. A critical piece that many of us advocated for was complete sidewalks and streetscapes so we have safe spaces and roads. I'd like to encourage town to look for those safe roads and streetscape grants that the Caltrans puts out. I think there was about a $5 billion budget for those grants, so I think that would be wonderful to look for those types of dollars for planning. I also think it's so critical to address our character. Challenging word, as some of us know during the general plan, but as we know, we have Truckee Funk. We have a beautiful historic downtown. We cannot ruin that with development and structures that really infringe on that character and preserving what charm Truckee has. I think it's so important as you move around spaces and places to recognize so much preservation that has happened, as well as smart growth development and honoring our historic character. So for mountain area preservation, we believe this type of infrastructure is really at odds with preserving our character. And also there are much better ways to improve our streetscapes, our sidewalks, and really encourage people to get out and be a healthy community, as well as encourage our visitors to be healthy. So thank you again. Thanks, Alfred, for a wonderful process. Our advocacy director served on the committee. She thoroughly enjoyed it, and just appreciate your time tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, Alexis, and thank you for your committee service.
Hi, first of all, thanks for letting me speak. My name is Tiffany Connolly. I own a home in downtown Truckee where I live full time. I'm also a local business owner. I'm here to express strong opposition to the proposed downtown railroad pedestrian and bicycle crossing. An overhead bridge with elevator towers, in my opinion, would be unattractive and would permanently change the character of our downtown. It would also become a long-term maintenance burden for the town. We already have 2 accessible crossings that are less than a mile apart. Downtown is meant to be walked or biked if we're on wheels or if that's what you are doing. And that short distance doesn't justify spending tens of millions of dollars on a new midpoint crossing. If there are safety or accessibility concerns, it makes much more sense to improve the existing crossings instead of building a major new structure. Thanks.
Thank you, Tiffany.
Good evening, Truckee Town Council members. Brendan Riley here, 27-year Truckee resident, 22-year HPAC veteran, licensed architect. Kudos to Alfred and the team, under budget and ahead of schedule. That's a awesome job, so good there. I'm here to support staff's recommendation that the feasibility study's draft report be accepted and additional steps with the endeavor be deferred, if not abandoned. While such an undertaking may be feasible and achieve some degree of success relative to the stated goals, it should also be noted that such an undertaking would be wildly expensive, detrimental to our historic district, and create an attractive nuisance with inordinate risk. Our downtown is often described as Truckee's beating heart. While this overcrossing may provide some limited benefit to a relative few, its negative consequences are borne by everyone. Focusing on accessible sidewalks, bike-friendly streets is a better use of our tax dollars and continues to complement and preserve our unique historic character, all at a significantly reduced risk to the public's health, well-being, and pocketbook. Thank you.
Thank you, Brendan.
Yeah, good evening, Mayor, Town Council, staff, fellow citizens. I'm Paco Lindsay. I'm a 50-year resident of Truckee. I also did serve on the CRC. I also sat on the original 2002 master plan for bikeways. And then I also served on the 2015 bikeways master plan. So I'm pretty much up to speed on what's going on there. First of all, I want to just reiterate that this is only a study, a feasibility study, and it's only to be accepted, not voted on, nothing more. It's just accepted. Being part of the committee, a few things got flushed out. Like, myself, I thought, hey, wow, let's just walk over the railroad tracks, have a crossing gate come down. And I found out, along with everybody else on the committee, that you can't do that. UP would not ever allow that. So we flushed out various things. We kind of moved away from some things. I think we also found out the undercrossing was going to be way more expensive. And also my understanding from Alfred, I think, was that the UP was perhaps against even an undercrossing. We didn't know if that was even going to be allowed. So I think we flushed some stuff out. But we have a long ways to go. So I'm just saying, accept the study. You're not voting for it. We're not here to talk about how big something is. I was talking to some friends of mine. They were getting kind of freaked out. And I go, okay, the renderings are the renderings. That was just one thing. There might be 100 options. We don't know if they're going to be glass, wood, concrete, stone. We don't know what they're going to be made out of. So I'm just saying, I'm asking tonight that I thought the study was great. I want to give huge kudos to everybody that served with me on the committee, to town staff and the hired consultants. I think a lot was done. So I think that's what you guys are dealing with. So that's what I'm asking you. The only comment I want to make, a personal comment, was when I was involved with the land trust and the getting the new park over there at Truckee Springs, and this is before the downtown park was built. I was standing down on that corner where our new park is, across from Travis's business. And I was there with Perry Norris, where they're talking about the future of Truckee Springs. And this family had parked there. They had 2 children, maybe 6, 7 years old, not too old. They came walking up. I see them looking. They walk across the street, kind of by flyers. They come back. They go, how do we get to downtown? And Perry goes, well, yeah, you walk down that way, and you go down there. And they go, what? We have our kids. And they kind of looked kind of frustrated. So to me, I think there is a need. What it's going to be, I don't know. But I think there's a need. So I'm going to leave it at that. I just accept the study, and there's going to be a ton of, I think, community conversation future about what we need. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Paco.
Good evening, Truckee. My name is Matt Hillock. I'm here tonight representing American Legion Post 439, Truckee, California, located at 10214 High Street in Truckee. We are 6 years away from celebrating 100 as an organization. Our building is 16 years away from 100. So when we turn 100, our building will be 90. The property that is attached to the Veterans Building is expansive. It is untapped, and at the moment, the south-facing hillside is a fire hazard. It is filled with brush, and that's about it. So from High Street that goes around the front of the building down to Donner Pass Road, from Ross Nagel's house all the way over to the very first residential house is attached to the Veterans Memorial property. It's expansive. That, we're talking pathways and improvements in the heart of Truckee. The Veterans Building is at the heart. It was the former location of the McGlashan Mansion. We have tons of interest every November 11th about what the veterans are doing in town. But we are here 365 days out of the year, mostly. I think in the 10 years that I've been here, I have not once heard someone say or ask to me, near me, around me, how do I get to the other side of the tracks? I'm just saying. I don't like speaking in front of people, but I keep finding myself talking in front of the town of Truckee. And this is important. We're so close to 100, and we've gotten a little bit of support over the last couple of years from Rec and Park as far as some paint, some tiles. But overall, I think we're really missing a way to make the Truckee Veterans Memorial property into a pedestrian-centered location for Truckee. It's beautifully positioned between I-80, and we all know what that's like, and Donner Pass Road, and we all know what that can be like. So to have a calming space in the middle, in the heart of Truckee, to me makes sense. And if we don't do it now, overpasses, underpasses, whatever, if we pass on this, we're gonna miss a really good opportunity for Truckee to set the standard. Thank you.
Thank you, Matt.
Hi there, my name is Laurel Rudolph. I was born here in Truckee, longtime resident. First off, I just want to say this feasibility report, after reviewing it, looks like it was really well thought out. You had a number of really great people in there providing different input, because I know these sort of processes are extremely difficult to work with different agencies, try and figure out what's actually cost effective and what all the future potential additional costs with this are. With that kind of being said, and I know this isn't really being addressed with this, and I'm in favor of the actual feasibility report itself actually being passed, but with this overcrossing alternative of these options, I think it should kind of just be looked into further to see what these additional costs are associated with. The maintenance of the roof, the potential of like the sliding of the snow onto the actual Union Pacific Railway, and what that kind of, those aspects continue on to the additional costs associated with all the elevator maintenance and the likelihood of the elevators actually going out and having that not actually become ADA compliant any further, and kind of compare those to the costs if this middle overcrossing goes forward with the undercrossing. Because while the undercrossing is definitely more expensive in the short term, it's really difficult to dig out there. There's the potential of hazard waste in that soil, especially with Union Pacific, and the additional costs with that. I just think the long term of the undercrossing is going to be more beneficial to the town, to the people who are actually walking. And yes, it is like a longer walkway, but I think those the ADA behind it is actually going to still be able to be there. I think it's also going to prevent more opportunities for the bikers. As somebody who bikes really regularly from Glenshire to Donner Lake, I think having this being in that midpoint will get more people on these e-bikes with the B-cycle and everything, being able to use this more likely than the overcrossing itself. So I think the undercrossing is going to be a more useful use of these funds overall, even though those costs up front look a little bit scary. So that's all I have to say, and thank you.
Thank you so much, Ms. Rudolph.
Good evening. My name is John Marks. I'm a full-time resident here of Truckee. Thanks for the opportunity to speak. To echo others, thank you to staff and the citizens who participated in this. I think they brought forward the best of a lot of subpar options here. I am here to advocate that the council accepts the staff recommendation to defer additional project development. I believe for a lot of reasons you've heard here tonight, and I'm sure that you've read about, this would be highly controversial for our community. And as you've seen here tonight as well, there's a lot of work left undone in our community, including the update of the master plan as discussed. So I do urge you to not let something like this divide our community when we have so much to be united around. So thank you.
Thank you very much, John.
Hello, my name is Monica Sasserini. I appreciate the opportunity to speak in front of you about the overcrossing possibility. In my opinion, the costs just seem way too high. Also, the land that we're building the end structures on, the elevators, we're going to have to be leasing from the railroad. We're not going to own that. We're going to own a structure that is on land and in airspace owned by the railroad. Also, maintenance costs for the elevators and yearly inspections, you know, additional staff for the police department when there's issues on this overcrossing. I just think it's too expensive. I'm totally in agreement with the undercrossing or the at grade. I guess you've said that we can't do, but I grew up on the river, and we went over to town to get the newspaper. There was a butcher shop, grocery store, so I'm not going to tell you how many years ago that was. And we crossed right there behind where the train station was. No crossings, nothing. I just think that that is visually a better option, or the underground, because of when I come home from Reno, when I come from Auburn, and I come into town, it's just a sigh of relief. You know, you see this beautiful town, the sun's hitting the buildings, and now we're going to have a structure possibly that will block the views of our town. It's why we live here. It's why we see the mountains when we turn 360 degrees standing downtown, and I just think this will block that view, and I don't think it's necessary. We could also extend from the new parking areas on West River Street. We could extend nice sidewalks, benches to go under McIver Crossing, expose that part of town, because half the time, I don't even remember when the town of Truckee just posted this musical statues. I thought, well, where's that at? Because we're not hitting that part of town. So this would bring the traffic around from the beginning of the town to the end of the town instead of just directly on the main street. So I do oppose overcrossing. I just think it would destroy the whole character of the town. And thank you for listening. Appreciate it.
Thank you very much, Monica.
Good evening. Stephanie Olivieri, Truckee. I'm pleased to read that the staff report accepted the draft of the PED bicycle crossing feasibility study, and I approve of that. But deferring any additional project development until the 2015 Bike and Master Plan update is completed is a fabulous idea. And I want to thank Alfred, who was amazing through this whole process, and your staff. It was a great experience. I hope that the town would consider scrapping the whole concept of this dreadful overbridge. And such a crossing with its size and impacts to the viewshed and the unique character of Truckee and its historic district. I remain hopeful that that might happen. The size and scale of the project would completely change the beautiful, magical viewshed of our historic railroad corridor and the built environment therein. The Carson Range to the east and the Sierra to the west, and the singularly unique buildings along its viewshed path that define our historic downtown. Those may be lost. When I come to work every morning and drive into town and see the beautiful Carson Range, unobstructed along the tracks, makes my heart pound. The project is massive in comparison to existing structures and is incompatible and out of character with the historic nature of our downtown. It is not a shortcut to the other side of the tracks, but a short circuit to our goal to become a walkable, bikeable historic district. To that end, we should focus on planning a walkable, bikeable loop from Bridge Street at Grade Crossing to the McIver Undercrossing that allows visitors and locals to walk and bike past shops, services, restaurants, parks, and then loop around under the McIver Crossing to Brickletown Business and onto the main street, exposing the traveler along the way to the many shops, the coffee houses, restaurant, historic buildings, and just maybe to a Truckee they may never have known by car. Our community is like no other. With thoughtful deliberation on your part, may our future not include the proposed Skyway. Thank you.
Thank you, Stephanie. Are there any other public comments?
Hi. My name is Todd Wolf, and if I can make it over the tracks, anybody can, and you're just pissing away a lot of money. That's all I gotta say.
Thank you, Mr. Wolf. Appreciate you being here and sharing that with us. Any other public comments? Okay. Closing public comment. I'll bring it back for deliberation. Does anybody wish to start off our deliberation?
I'm happy to start.
All right, Councilmember.
Thank you. I wanted to just take a quick minute and just highlight some really positive things about this whole process that I have already been highlighted in some of these comments. But again, I just kudos to so many people who were involved in this. And first, as Alfred brought up at the beginning of the presentation, this idea of having an additional crossing has lived in a lot of our previous plans. It was brought up in the River Revitalization Steering Committee. So this idea behind it has been out there. And then kudos to staff for seeking state grant funding. So to be able to utilize state dollars, not our local dollars, to hire the consultants and do this feasibility study. And then to give us some of these answers, because I think similar to many of you, I would have thought an at-grade crossing, that makes a lot of sense and we can just go across. But now thanks to the work done, we understand that's not feasible. So I just really value staff's foresight to go out for this grant and be able to work with a consultant again to make some of these determinations. And then kudos to Steve and Paco, Alexis and team and others, and Stephanie, who were part of the committee process. It was just another one of these great Truckee Way community involvement to see so many different voices coming from different perspectives and sharing their thoughts. So that was great. And then, as Vice Mayor said earlier, just thank you to everybody who submitted comments in advance and who came out tonight. We always love seeing so many chairs filled and people involved in the public process, so we appreciate that. And then I want to say, I hear everybody, and I'm in full support of moving forward with the staff's recommendation, accepting the report, deferring any efforts until we move forward with an update to our Trails and Bikeways Master Plan, Active Transportation Plan, whatever we want to call it. That's one thing that I've been really excited to be moving forward. So I think that would be a great utilization of staff time to put effort and energy into that. And then to talk about the sidewalk connections, to what Matt brought up of connecting up to Veterans Hall, that's where we can have more of those conversations. And while we know community connectivity is still a priority among all of us, maybe a railroad crossing isn't the right way, and some of the other ideas that were brought up might make more sense, might be more feasible, and might show more benefits than just crossing the railroad tracks. So again, appreciate everyone's work on this effort, everyone being here tonight and serving on these committees, and happy to support staff's recommendation.
Go ahead.
Sure. Yeah, I ditto a lot of what Council Member Romack just said, and I do also, I think, I don't remember who said it, but I also remember the not so distant past where we could all walk across the railroad tracks and there wasn't fencing on both sides, limiting sort of the shorter shortcut downtown. And, and that was nice. It was incredibly unsafe, and it was a challenge to maintain in just a very general way. And Union Pacific, they did what they're gonna do in their right-of-ways, and they gave us a nice long fence that's really hard to get over, and we see that. And what the town has done in reaction to that, which I find incredibly valuable, is we've created alternative routes, and Travis just left, but it's great to get your tires changed, to go over to the park, walk your dog, to one of my businesses is on the other side of the tracks, and to make that walk. And it's not it's not long. It's not exactly the most convenient or a straight line, but it is, to some of the other comments, an opportunity to get to experience our downtown. And we do have a really major project coming with the Reimagined Bridge Street project, which we hope to get underway in the next couple of years. And so I think it was a great opportunity. I think it was important to research this opportunity. I think that has been on the list for a long time, as has been discussed. And I'm really happy to divert our resources elsewhere. The Active Transportation Plan has been also a priority of mine to move forward and to really understand how we can evolve our streetscapes, how we can evolve our walkways, how we can evolve our biking paths, etc. So I too am accepting of this report and grateful to everybody who volunteered their time, to all of you who submitted public comments. Totally awesome, and we do genuinely enjoy that, and look forward to shelving this for the time being and seeing where our active transportation plan takes us and investing our scarce resources in the many, many, many other projects we have in front of us that we have been working to complete for many years. So I'll leave it at that. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Palovey. Councilmember Zabriskie?
I agree with my colleagues. I'm putting a lot of trust in this report because of the effort and the people who are involved in producing it, both the staff and the larger community. Paco Lindsay's written comment and Brendan Riley's and maps were all very helpful and helped not congeal, but helped me consolidate my thoughts on this. What this points out for me is all the greater need to improve our bikeways and pedestrian paths. A big issue we have been wrestling with over the years is which street gets the priority, whether it's Jaboom Street, Church Street, other parts of downtown. Do we do West River Street before that? That's not in the plan right now, but we can see there's needs in all those places, on which I place a much higher priority than this speculative bridge. I agreed with the gentleman, was it John Marks, who said we've identified the best of the subpar options. And so yes, we can put all those questions and answers behind us now and hopefully focus on the surface street pathways for bikes and pedestrians.
Vice Mayor?
Thank you. Just thank you again to everyone for being here. I know we're 90 minutes in, so you might be getting a little antsy. I'll try to wrap this up pretty quickly. I would just say that we've invested in this feasibility study. It's recommending that we essentially shelve it until we update our 2015 Trails and Bikeways Master Plan. And to me, that's really prudent governance. Accepting the study doesn't mean rejecting the concept if there is reason to pursue it in the future. I'm not saying there is, but communities evolve. I can't forecast what our community's needs will be in 10, 15, 20 years from now. So to me, tonight is really about taking a much more systematic approach. Railroad crossings are incredibly expensive, which we saw in the staff report. They're very complex with UPR, CPUC, and so many other approvals. And so to me, it's really about ensuring that our investments that we're making are aligning with our overall active transportation needs and priorities. And the reality is that our existing master plan is over a decade old. It really does need to be updated. Our town's transportation patterns, our development, our community needs have evolved a lot over the past decade. And so I think we have to be really responsive to them and understand what those are in the present day. By deferring this specific project until we have those updated priorities, we're really being fiscally responsible rather than chasing an individual project in isolation. I do feel the need to say that, enhanced infrastructure, whether it's something like this or something completely different that the community pursues many years down the road, is not inherently antithetical to preserving community character. Infrastructure improvements, when done well, like things that we just did on West River Street, really can contribute to character while also enhancing mobility and providing all of these other public benefits. And historic Truckee's character wasn't built by avoiding infrastructure. It was built by investing in it. The railroad, the bridges, the downtown street grid, these were really bold infrastructure projects in their time. So I think I would just say that thoughtful infrastructure, and this may not be it, this specific project in this moment in time, but thoughtful infrastructure doesn't destroy character. It enhances character by using context-sensitive materials and scales, by improving walkability that gets people to our historic buildings and makes them more accessible, that reduces visual clutter when we underground our utilities, and really invites people to linger, to shop, to go to our restaurants, to appreciate the downtown core and the beauty that we have. To me, the goal isn't to freeze Truckee in amber. It's to ensure the downtown remains a living, functional place that serves residents and visitors while respecting its heritage. And I think done right, infrastructure really becomes invisible support for the character that we're all trying to preserve. So tonight, I am in agreement that we defer further development on this project until we've updated our 2015 Trails and Bikeways Master Plan. I do think the study has tremendous value just as a reference document when we're updating that plan. And this is really critical, just so that we're looking at our community needs comprehensively and strategically, and so that we can determine how different projects meet our goals and fit together. Projects like Reimagine Bridge Street and so many more. If you haven't seen all of the capital improvement project documents, you should take a look, because there are other infrastructure projects that have been contemplated for years and will be contemplated. Thank you again to everyone for being here and for your public comments tonight.
Thank you. It seems that we have a direction, and I agree with what my fellow council members have said. I'm particularly excited about the redirection of our staff time and resources. I think that's a really great opportunity. I do just want, we did receive a couple of positive comments, which was great to see. It's nice to, it's important to me that everybody feels like their voice can be heard, regardless of where their neighbor stands on an issue. So I want to appreciate everybody expressing their opinions on both sides of this issue. But what came through in what I heard tonight and in what I read in comments, particularly Rolf Godon's comments, is that the consultants and Alfred and our staff did an exceptional job of presenting a lot of different options, gathering really critical information, and offering it in a neutral way for the committee to consider and pontificate about. So I really want to thank the consultants and our staff for doing that. I do think that this is an important part of our process in making sure that we have taken the time to know that we are making the right decision, not just for one interest group, not just because it's on a plan somewhere, but because we really looked at all of the options and considered the pros and cons. So with that, do we need a motion on this as well? I should make notes on that.
That would be great. Thank you.
Okay. And who would like to move this?
I move that we accept the downtown pedestrian bicycle railroad crossing feasibility study final draft report and defer additional project development activities until completing an update to the 2015 Truckee Trails and Bikeways Master Plan, including updated pedestrian and bicycle project priorities.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Passes unanimously. Thank you, everybody. Can I do a quick check for my fellow council members? Do we want to get through 7.3 or take a break? Okay, we will move on to 7.3 then. And that's going to be presented by Kelly, so I'll stall for a minute and give you a moment to get up there. This is an update to the town's conflict of interest code.
I'm going to tackle this one, and Kelly's going to turn the slides for me.
Oh, fabulous. Take it away, Andy.
Okay, so the town is required to have a conflict of interest code. It's something that just kind of hums along in the background. We don't really think about it too much. It's something that's required by state law, and helpfully, we don't have to come up with our own. The state kind of gives us all the contents of it, and so we just adopt that by reference. But what we have to do is identify certain people to be covered by the code. So there's some people, some positions, you, me, Jen, Nikki, who are covered by statute, and so those people we don't have to worry about. But then our code has to cover other people who make financial decisions, and so that's what our code does, and we have to update it every 2 years. So this is the 2026 update, and if we can't get the slideshow up, I can just talk. But are we almost there?
I do think, just for my fellow council members, it looks like Kelly emailed us this presentation so we can follow along.
Okay. I don't have it up, but I looked at it today. Okay, there we go. So as I said, we have to update this every 2 years, every even numbered year. Let's go to the next slide if you can. There we go. It's a set of rules mandated by the Political Reform Act. And as I said, we're incorporating by reference some FPPC language. Let's go to the next slide. We have to do it every 2 years, and the idea is to provide some transparency. Ultimately, what the code does is it says who has to file a Form 700, a statement of economic interest, and who has to file the full one with the full disclosure, and who does a more limited disclosure. Let's go to the next slide. So there, as I said, there are some positions that are required by law to disclose everything. And then we add some more positions in the code that require full disclosure. The department heads, essentially, you disclose all your investments, business positions, sources of income, real property in Truckee or within 2 miles. And then the code will also list other positions that require more limited disclosure. Anyone who makes decisions that might have some impact on their economic interests. That's all the planners, it's the finance and accounting staff, it's HR staff, it's the command staff of the PD, and senior staff in public works. And limited disclosure is narrower. You don't have to disclose everything that you've got in your pocket, just some things. And our code lists what those are. Let's go to the next slide. So we have to do it every even year, and if we have significant staffing changes, we have to do it more often. This update is intended to add some new positions. We have an assistant town manager now. We're about to have a director. Well, no, we have had a director of neighborhood services. We had one, and we will again. We have an engineering manager now, and then we've got some staffing changes. So anytime we have updates like this, we have to include them in the updated code. So that's what we're doing. And that's basically it. So you have in front of you a resolution that would approve the updated code. And one little programming note, we realized as we were looking at this that 2 years ago, staff made a minor oops. We included the building inspector position in the code. We were not really quite ready to do that at the time. So we're asking you as part of this action to retroactively remove it from the 2024 version of the code, although it has been added to this code. And it's all in the resolution. The code, the resolution, everything you need is in the packet. If you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
I'll just add on a little bit. We usually do this on consent, I think, so a little bit different that you're getting a presentation. But I think it's a good reminder for the community that's watching of just what this is, what the reporting requirements are, a little bit of a transparency item with this. So thanks for indulging us.
I think it's an excellent reminder, especially since I fill out 4 of them every year. Love it. Okay, any questions from any council members? Councilmember Zabriskie?
Yeah, it just wasn't clear to me. Why was it included in the first place?
Why was what included?
The building official.
I think that at the time we thought that maybe that position had the requisite responsibilities, and then we decided after the fact that it did not, and it had not been communicated to the inspectors. They were going to need to start filing a Form 700. So we needed to have it removed from the last code, and now it'll be in this code, and they have the requisite responsibilities now, and we'll be able to tell them they need to file.
Because when we're filing in January, we are looking at the year prior, so that's why we need to remove it from the year prior, right?
Yes,
For
and they
this
would not
position.
have, if that requirement stayed in the 2024 code, they would have had to file an annual SEI in 2025 that they didn't file.
Thank
so,
you.
Little minor housekeeping thing, but we think we have our ducks in a row going forward.
Other questions?
Does this change our reporting requirements, or we
Not
have
at
the
all.
exact same, right?
Yes.
Nothing changes for you.
Nothing changed. Okay, just making sure.
Vice Mayor?
No, my only question had been, this is routine compliance with state law. It's not controversial. It's good government housekeeping. So why wasn't it on consent? And you've already answered that. So
It probably will be in
Next
2
time.
years, but
That's
just
fair.
once in a while, it's good
Yeah.
to mention what we're doing
that makes
behind
sense.
the scenes.
Thank you.
Any questions, Councilmember Romack? Okay, and I have none. And I do believe we've lost all of our public, but I will call for public comment anyway, seeing none. Any deliberation on this, or do I have a motion?
I'll motion that we adopt Resolution 2026-01, approving the updated Town of Truckee Conflict of Interest Code.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, passes unanimously.
Thank you.
All right. All right. Council committee designations. Kelly, do you have any intro to this, or should we just jump right in?
Hello, Town Council. My name's Kelly Carpenter. I'm the town clerk. And I am, yes, you may go.
Great. Does anybody wish to, trying to get it open here, does anybody wish to change any of their committee designations?
Can I jump in? So,
can.
If
I'm opening it up.
anyone wants to be the liaison for the library, I would love. I love everything I've learned about the library and having been involved in that. But just two of my committees take me down to Nevada City now frequently, and it's just so that is a hefty chunk of time. And I don't even know how often their library's meeting at this point. It's
I'll
winding.
jump in that
Yeah.
that role has been, we meet often on the library. We only have brought in the liaison if there is a particularly controversial or issue happening that maybe the elected lens is. So I don't think you've actually had to come in at all in the last year. It's a pretty minimal task. But if we should need you, we'd like to have a designee.
I mean, I can stay on because it's so infrequent. But if someone else was like interested, it's
Do we have any interested parties?
okay. You'll just pull me in if and when it is needed. How's that sound? Okay.
And we do have the regular shifting of designations for mayor and vice mayor, so no consideration or concerns there. Are there any other requests or comments we have, or are we ready to just accept the edits as shown here? We did remove one committee.
I will say just, I think there's a tiny little error in the staff report on page 314. Councilmember Romack, for you, for League of California Cities, you're the designee, but it's in red. And in the staff report, it says red are mayor and vice mayor obligations. So I think it should just be black. Just, it's a tiny little error, but for clarity.
Yes, thank you. We'll make that correction.
Yes, because you have been the designee for the past few years, yeah. Okay, and Councilmember Zabriskie, you're still comfortable with all of your committees and designations? Okay, I would just like to thank everybody for their service on all of these committees. I do regularly try to remind people that I meet with, especially friends and neighbors, that it is not just showing up here for these 2 meetings a month, that we do serve on these additional committees, and we take all of these roles very seriously and make sure that we attend and represent the community and or the council, and we prepare for these committee meetings. So I just want to thank my fellow council members for their continued commitment in all of these areas, and making sure that we are actively representing our community in these. Any other comments or, yes?
I just want to also thank my fellow council members. I think we've done just a great job too of including folks, when an opportunity arises and an alternate can't attend and there's availability to fill in. I think sometimes some of us have voiced interest in other things. So just really appreciate everybody up here, that we're all welcoming and inclusive to each other. So I just wanted to highlight that too.
Great point. I want to continue to encourage us all to share those times when we can't attend and allow somebody else to take our place. That cross-pollination I find to be very, very helpful. Oh, good. We have the public back.
I think I'm a little late to the party, but hi.
All right, great. So I'll now call for public comment on item 7.4. Do I have any public comment? Okay, closing public comment. Any additional deliberations? May I have a motion, please?
I'll move we continue with a typo to change red to black on the California Cities.
And
That was it.
we're removing Nevada County Economic Resource Council
Got it.
designation.
Yes.
Yeah, those are the only two changes.
We did add just to clarify, the chamber contract as an ad hoc. Councilmember Romack and Paula V have been meeting with the chamber in that role. They're an ad hoc so that it is not a Brown Act committee. You are not officially adopting this ad hoc list. It's more of an FYI, but that is a change that from previous iterations of this.
Great, then you don't need us to vote. Okay.
Motion retracted.
Okay, thank you very much. That is our last discussion item, so we'll move on to council reports. Who would like to start us off?
I can start. Mine's pretty short, given holidays and actually taking a break. I did want to share, though, that with Holidays Not Forgotten, we ended up providing gifts to 77 local children. Thank you to everyone who participated, who contributed. Several people in this room participated and contributed. And we actually had a holiday gift wrapping party right here. And just so many thanks to everyone at Town Hall who set up tables for us and brought in gift wrapping supplies. It was really beautiful. And I just wanted we have some testimonials from some of the families who received gifts. I won't share all of them. We have a lot, but I just wanted to share a couple really quickly. So one, thank you so much for these gifts. This is a really big help for the families that aren't getting a lot of work right now. May God bless you. And once again, thank you so much. We hope to continue getting support for those in need. Another one, this is the first time I have ever participated in a program like this. And to be honest, it has really helped us out, especially my family, because my daughter doesn't work and I am disabled. Thank you so much for the support. And then just one more. Hello, hope everyone is having a good night. I want to thank everyone who donated these gifts, as well as the men and women in the back. La Fuerza Latina was here to help with translation and to help with all of the gift wrapping when parents came in, to work with them to gift wrap and bring presents out to their cars and things like that. And this person just said they were very nice and humble, helping me wrap gifts for my children. Thank you for making our year and giving my kids a happy Christmas. So I just really wanted to thank everyone, because it really just took a whole village or community to pull this off this year, and I really hope we can do it again. And then the only other thing I wanted to share is that I had my Rodell Fellowship this past weekend, so I was out of town for 3 days for that. I know I've shared a little bit about that before. I wanted to actually share some of the things that we read and discussed, because for me, Rodell has been this incredible opportunity to really step back and reflect on why are we here? Why are we committed to public service? Why do we do the things we do? How do we do them in sort of an increasingly partisan era that is really challenging? So some of the things that we read, I won't share them all again because there's too many. We read the Declaration of Independence from 1776. I don't think I had read that since probably 8th grade or something like that. So it was amazing to actually go back to that. And of course, this year is the 250th year founding of our country. We read Frederick Douglass's What to the Slave is the 4th of July, which was published in 1852, which is just, the how they went about delivering speeches then and how they talked. It's beautifully written and talks a lot about, notions of equality and who has the right to what. I thought that was amazing. George Washington's farewell address in 1796. It's actually very short. Abraham Lincoln's second inaugural address from March 4th, 1865. And then some more contemporary readings. One by Michael Walzer, What Does It Mean to Be an American? We had some really deep conversations about that. Again, especially in sort of this hyper partisan era we seem to find ourselves in at this moment in time. And there were several others. And if anyone's interested in any of them, I know it can be kind of hard to read stuff from the 17 and 1800s, but it really is this amazing opportunity to just reflect and go really, really deep of how were we founded? Why do we do what we do? What things still resonate today? What things maybe don't? So that was 3 days this weekend.
Thank you. I would love it if you would share your reading list. Thank you. Councilmember Zabriskie.
I attended the county's annual stakeholder meeting in mid-April with our mayor and Jen and Hardy and Allison. And we discussed things like the homeless housing, police dispatch from the jail, housing more generally, the new library, and some other items. Then I met with Dave Diamond to understand better the building permit process, automation, and the number of forms and their types and how they're being classified. Hillary and I met with the new electric president for Liberty Utilities, and then Matt Newberry, who's the business and community development director for the utility. They have 50,000 accounts, 1,200 of which are in Truckee. What's worth noting is it is a new president who seems very receptive to finding ways to increase their renewable portfolio and increase electrification within their region. They have a rate application in for a 19% increase in revenue. Right now, their residential rate's about 27 cents per kilowatt, so that would be what Councilmember Pallavi probably pays. They have electric or solar utilities in Nevada interested in increasing them. There was a complaint, and we filed a letter related to it with the PUC about charging non-residents more than residents, as the PUD does. Okay, and then on the next one, I went to the TNT TMA meeting where we went over the new strategic plan. Also, there's an effort underway to improve the traffic flow on 267 at Schaefer Mill Road and Brockway coming here. Met with Jackie Culver to go over VTT, and then the update on THAC is that we're still in lease negotiations, or I should say the county is still in lease. That's it.
Thank you, Councilmember Zabriskie. Okay, Councilmember Romack?
Yeah, a lot of holiday travel and holiday fun. And then last week was at the Truckee Follies kickoff dinner. So looking forward to another great Truckee Follies. I think my fellow council members are all going to be on stage as well, hopefully. And should be another hilarious show. I know Becky might be involved too.
All right, Becky. Hey, Councilmember Paul.
Visit Truckee Tahoe board meeting. We did annual review, employee review, excuse me, or CEO review. So a little bit of a closed session. Attended the chamber holiday party, a couple other holiday parties, and then recently a couple of housing meetings. Met with Aaron Casey and Tony Karowski over on the Placer County side to start some conversations there. And then this afternoon, we kind of regrouped the homegrown housing folks and had a great discussion there. And you guys will be seeing the results of that in a couple of weeks and over the next few months. How about that? Something like that. And that's it for now.
We look forward to it. Okay. Attended the Nevada County meeting with outgoing Mayor Zabriskie at the time and Mayor Managers meeting in Grass Valley with Chief Renfro. The Climate Transformation Alliance quarterly meeting was last Friday, and we received an extensive legislative update and budget expectations from SBC. They do very critical monitoring of both the governor's budget as well as all the different legislative impacts. In particular, they're closely tracking where Proposition 4 funding is getting divided up as it gets split into thousands of pieces. We also shared a concept for future meetings becoming more of a local project incubator type sessions. We know we have a lot of great ideas in the community, and we have a lot of different technical expertise and different funding structures. We're trying to kind of bring those all together. The April meeting will be our trial run at this offering, and so we look forward to having the community attend, and hopefully I'll have a second council member that can attend with me for that opportunity. And we recognize there's there's really a critical need for the funding path, which is one of the benefits of becoming a charter member. The CTA is SBC then will provide that technical support on funding opportunities. So that's kind of our little offering out there to try to get more people to sign the charter. Let's see, and then I also attended the Clean Up the Lake year-end gathering, and this organization has grown so much from it just being Colin and storing stuff in his girlfriend's garage to this really robust organization that has now completed 2 circumnavigations of Donner Lake and is in the beginning phases of its 2nd circumnavigation of Lake Tahoe. But they've also cleaned up lakes all over the Sierras and in Minnesota and in Washington State and Belize. So they are going all over the place. They are getting called from communities with bodies of water that are known to be polluted. And so it's really amazing to see how this organization has grown and still holds really true to the critical nature of not just extracting the litter, but actually doing data collection and analysis on it. And then, of course, putting markers down for those large pieces that need additional support to extract, like our, kitchen at the bottom of Donner Lake. So that's it. We do have a closed session item, and that's a public employee performance review for our town attorney, according to Government Code Section 54-957. Do we have any public comment on this agenda item before we proceed to closed session? Seeing none, we will adjourn. Thank you, everybody. We'll see you on January 27th.